In wingsuit flying, control is everything. Not strength, not speed. Control. A trained pilot can adjust their flight path by inches, correct instability in less than a second, and glide through narrow air corridors with near-perfect precision. But there is one moment in every wingsuit flight where control doesn't exist yet. The exit. For most pilots, it lasts less than 3 seconds, a brief transition from falling to flying. For one of the most experienced wingsuit flyers in the world, that moment never stabilized. On the morning of January the 26th, high above the Mont Blanc Massif in eastern France, conditions appeared ideal. Clear skies stretched across the Alpine range. Visibility extended for miles. Winds at altitude were light, hovering between 5 and 8 miles per hour. Temperatures were well below freezing, but stable, the kind of morning elite wingsuit pilots wait for. At just over 13,000 feet, a helicopter hovered in open air, its rotors cutting through the still mountain atmosphere. Inside, a small team prepared for a routine high-altitude jump. Among them was 37-year-old Pierre Wolnik. Pierre was not an amateur. He was not experimental. He was not reckless. At the time of this flight, he was considered one of the most technically precise wingsuit pilots in Europe. He had thousands of skydives behind him, hundreds of wingsuit flights, years of experience navigating complex alpine terrain. Just months earlier, he had secured a world championship title in wingsuit performance. His reputation was built on consistency. He wasn't known for viral stunts. He wasn't chasing extreme proximity lines. He focused on controlled flight, clean exits, predictable trajectories. Other pilots described him the same way: calm, methodical, deliberate. The kind of flyer who reduces risk, not one who invites it. Outside of competition, Pierre spent much of his time refining technique, testing equipment, reviewing flight data, analyzing body position down to small adjustments. He treated wingsuit flying less like a thrill and more like a system, one that could be understood, improved, and repeated. The jump that morning was not unusual. Unlike cliff-based wingsuit flights, this exit would come from a helicopter. That changes one critical factor. There is no terrain to push away from. No rock face to guide the initial airflow. Everything depends on body position and clean air. The plan was simple. Exit the aircraft cleanly, allow the wingsuit to inflate within seconds. Stabilize into forward glide, then continue into a standard descent profile before deploying the parachute at a safe altitude. Pierre had performed similar exits before. Nothing about the plan suggested elevated risk. Before takeoff, the team reviewed equipment checks. Harness secured, pilot chute positioned. Main deployment system verified. Everything passed. But helicopter exits introduce a variable that doesn't exist in most other forms of wingsuit flying: rotor wash. As the helicopter hovers, its blades push massive volumes of air downward. That air doesn't simply disappear. It spreads outward, circulates and creates pockets of disturbed flow around the aircraft. In calm conditions, these disturbances are manageable, but at high altitude, where air density is lower, even small disruptions can have amplified effects. The air becomes thinner, less supportive, less forgiving. A wingsuit depends on stable airflow to generate lift. If that airflow is disrupted at the wrong moment, The suit cannot pressurize correctly. And without pressurization, there is no glide, only fall. At approximately 9:18 a.m., the helicopter stabilized at jump altitude. The door was opened. Cold air rushed into the cabin. One by one, the team prepared for exit. Pierre moved into position near the door, his body aligned, hands steady, eyes focused on the open sky beyond the aircraft. There was no visible turbulence, no sudden shifts. From the outside, everything appeared calm. He gave a final signal, then stepped forward into open air. The first fraction of a second looked normal. His body dropped cleanly from the aircraft. No contact with the frame, no visible misstep. But almost immediately, something changed. Instead of smooth laminar airflow filling the wingsuit, the air around him broke into uneven currents. The rotor wash, combined with thin alpine air, created a chaotic pocket just below the helicopter. His suit began to inflate, but not evenly. One side caught air first, the other lagged behind. Within a second, his body began to rotate, not violently, but enough. In wingsuit flying, even a slight asymmetry during inflation can destabilize the entire system. His left wing filled, his right wing partially collapsed. This created a roll, a tilt. His forward glide never fully established. Instead of converting downward motion into forward speed, he remained in a steeper descent. He attempted to correct subtle shifts in shoulder position, leg alignment adjustments, but the air was still unstable. The wingsuit could not fully pressurize. Seconds passed, but in wingsuit flight, seconds matter. Without stable glide, his vertical speed increased, faster than expected, faster than planned. At this stage, a pilot would normally have options: stabilize, rebuild airflow, transition into glide. But Pierre was still inside a disturbed air column beneath the helicopter. The very space he needed to escape was the one preventing recovery. As he dropped further, the airflow began to smooth slightly, but by then he had already lost critical altitude. The wingsuit partially stabilized, but not enough. His descent rate remained high. He had to make a decision: continue attempting to stabilize or transition immediately to parachute deployment. He chose the second option. At a lower than planned altitude, Pierre reached for his pilot chute. This is the moment designed to end the flight safely. A small deployment, a clean extraction, a canopy opening above. But this time, it didn't happen. The pilot chute released, but failed to catch clean air. Instead of pulling the main parachute free, it hesitated, caught in turbulent flow. Dragging behind him without generating enough force to initiate full deployment, he attempted to correct body adjustments, angle changes, anything to present the pilot chute to cleaner airflow. But his speed was high, his altitude was dropping, and the airflow remained unstable. The system required one thing: clean, consistent air. It never arrived. There was no full canopy deployment, no deceleration. Only continued descent. At approximately 9:19 a.m., less than a minute after exit, Pierre impacted the mountainside below. The helicopter crew saw the descent, but from their position there was little they could do. They marked the last known coordinates and immediately alerted rescue services. Within minutes, local mountain rescue teams were mobilized, but the terrain below was steep, snow-covered and unstable. Helicopter access was limited due to shifting wind patterns along the slope. Ground teams began the approach on foot. It took over an hour to reach the impact zone. Rescuers navigated icy rock faces, loose snow layers, and sections of exposed cliff. When they arrived, they found Pierre near the base of a steep incline. His parachute system had partially deployed, but not enough to slow descent. There were no signs of mid-air collision, no evidence of structural equipment failure, only one consistent conclusion: the parachute had not deployed in time. In the days that followed, investigators reviewed all available data: flight footage, equipment condition, weather reports. Everything pointed to a combination of factors: rotor wash from the helicopter, thin high-altitude air, unstable airflow during the critical first seconds of exit. These conditions prevented full wingsuit pressurization, which led to unstable descent, which forced early parachute deployment, which then failed due to continued turbulent airflow. Within the wingsuit community, Pierre's death carried significant weight, not because he was inexperienced, but because he wasn't. He represented the highest level of control the sport could offer. And still, the system failed. Training programs began revisiting helicopter exit protocols. Greater emphasis was placed on rotor wash dynamics, on exit positioning, on delayed deployment strategies to avoid turbulent zones. Some teams reconsidered high-altitude helicopter jumps entirely. Not because they were impossible, but because they introduced variables that could not always be controlled. Pierre's final flight didn't involve risky terrain or aggressive maneuvering, or unnecessary decisions. It began as a standard, controlled exit, and ended before flight was ever fully established. His story became a reminder of something many experienced pilots already understood. In wingsuit flying, the most dangerous moment is not always deep into the flight. Sometimes it's the very beginning. Control in this sport is built on airflow, on pressure, on balance, but in the first seconds after exit, those elements don't fully exist yet. They have to form, and if something interrupts that process, even briefly, there may not be enough time to recover. Pierre Wolnik had mastered nearly every part of wingsuit flight, but on that morning in the French Alps, the one phase that lasts only seconds was the one that never gave him control. And in a sport where recovery depends on time and altitude, those lost seconds were everything. If you want more detailed breakdowns of real-world incidents like this, subscribe for more.